I like that TRU-Man podcast.
As men, our fulfillment in this world comes from producing value, but maybe not in the way you might think. From this point on, let's look at ourselves as value producers. We absorb only what needs to be energized. We say only what needs to be said. We break what needs to be broken. We command what needs to be commanded. We aim only for success. We work to build value. We play the game to win. And we keep adapting until we do win. We keep our face like flint. We don't complain. We don't look back. From this point on, we are value producers. Family, allow me to strongly encourage you to watch this video all the way through. This will be a foundational video on this platform, and it will open up a new vein of insights for us as we go forward into the value sphere. Let us go inside the studio and have this conversation. Raging wildfires in 2022 have scorched up much land across the state of California. It has wiped out structures and caused destruction that will never be built again. Let's say for discussion purposes that you lived in one of these communities and the fire ravaged your home and your neighbor's home. In the moment, rescue teams are there, fire teams are there, FEMA teams are there, and they allow you to go into your home for 20 minutes and try to retrieve some personal belongings. What are the first things you look for? After we know our loved ones are safe, what do? First, we'll probably look for things of value. But I'll tell you this, that if a man is a worker with tools, he will go in and retrieve the tools he can use to start to do what? Rebuild his value. Why? Because men can always go out and produce more value. Well, family, the problem is that, like California's wildfires scorching and raging the land throughout the world, we have fires. We have worldwide fires, and we see the smoke. And I'm here to sound the alarm because it's the one thing that we can do to save ourselves from a raging fire, and that is to grab our value before the fire scorches where we stand. We need to start to move as if the fire is imminent and at our backs, because it is. Family, this is Ray Black of TRU-Man Podcast, and we're about to go on a hike into the value sphere, where we focus on gold paradigms and diamond principles. Let's go. Listen, the hammer in our current world is falling, and we will at some point see that hammer crush the remnants of the old order of things. I say at some point, but in my mind, I'm really thinking that the hammer starts to fall this year. As a matter of fact, I project that by September 2025, we will see the beginnings of a wholesale reorganization of our social order. It's already happening in monumental ways. Now, I'll have to do a Nostradamus type vid another day, but it's simple to say that in the coming 2 years, maybe, many men will find that we are facing pressures in our mental health, possibly in our financial well-being. We must ask ourselves, what are we doing to prepare for these pressures and eventualities? Some people call this hammer that's coming the Great Disruption. We've heard the rumblings of this already. Remember the World Economic Forum's prediction? You will own nothing and be happy. As a matter of fact, today is day one of Davos 2023, and the World Economic Forum's theme this year is cooperation in a fragmented world. Do you think it's any coincidence that the World Economic Forum's conference focusing on cooperation starts on MLK Day? It hits me in a very real place how Martin Luther King's words, his audacity, his prophetic messages have been watered down to mainly mean cooperation. But listen, That's all we're going to get from the powers that be. Martin Luther King meant more to me than that. More than just a man of cooperation. He challenged everybody to live lives of value. In one of his lesser-known speeches, Dr. King talked about how he feared that in his efforts to push for integration, that he had led his people into what? A burning house. Dr. King was turning a corner, man, but he was cut down before he could fully make that pivot. Well, we are now all living in the burning house he prophesied about. And it's time for us to take up and take hold of our values. There has to be some sense that we get of the waste that's happening when we click on or turn on videos that offer us empty calorie content. Content that brings no real value once it's consumed. I'm not the first person to say this, but that's why I work so hard to add meat to these videos on the TRU-Man podcast channel, all the way to the final edit. Can we really afford to devote much more time to content that doesn't move us along the path of growth, the path of value? Let's talk about it. Today we get to choose value or consumption, to be a value producer or to be a consumption-minded person. Why stay on the hamster wheel, though, of consumption-minded living, ignoring the smoke and the fire that is raging in our world? We do our best to grab a hold of our value before our world gets turned upside down, because we will need it as our foundation to sustain us in hard times. Maybe we will start to produce value-centered content. Maybe other people will. Maybe you already do that. Maybe other content creators will make that shift. I wish they would. The need for this type of value-centered content will become more apparent in no less than 3 months' time. And many of us need to get off of the joyride of consuming empty calorie content. I project that starting around April, May of 2023, the economic and political picture for many will start to dim. And the waves of disruption caused by certain world realities will challenge many of us in ways we didn't foresee. In my estimation, the time period between April 2023 and September 2025 will be the worst of times and the best window of opportunity to represent. For those of us who have or will just shift our focus for the next 30 days, let's say, away from entertainment-based, consumption-based content to focus instead on value maximizing content and to focus on value, you will be better positioned to have a ready response to the great disruption when it happens. The great disruption will be characterized by a reshaping of our modern culture, of our social rules and norms, of our monetary policy, of changes to currency rules and asset ownership, and even changes to civil and voting rights. Let's think of having this value mindset as having a life preserver against the great coming disruption. Any one of us, we could face cash flow issues. We could be faced with losing our assets, cryptocurrency, anybody? We could be faced with legal proceedings based on some civil or criminal violation. And as a certainty, we can all look forward to being taxed more heavily to make up for government's diminishing tax revenue. We have the remnants of war breaking out around us, economic, political, and social change on a wide scale. We will still be dealing with severe inflation and unmanageable U.S. debt. There'll be big consequences on the world economy and on trade as a result of a weakened U.S. dollar that is certainly to come. Did we say anything about the introduction of the digital dollar? All that really has to happen to tip this camel over is for one more health pandemic wave to cause major chaos. Possibly add war escalation to that, and it's a rap ski. In the final analysis, the world is changing fast. Stuff is shifting and evolving. All I gotta ask is, do you have your life preserver on? Let's talk about this life preserver. May I suggest there are 2 modes of existence in this world. A value-based mode where we build, invest, yield, sow, and reap, and the consumer-based mode where we buy, spend, consume, and eat. But that's simplistic, isn't it? Think about it. In the consumer mode, we work, buy, Rent, eat, consume, rest, play, rinse, repeat. We participate in all the things that keep the economic engine going. But we do it as pawns of that system, as consumers in a vast machine of economic activity. In that machine, our minds are heavily under the influence of what that machine wants us to do. You know, chase that dream, man. Wife, house, car, kids, nothing wrong with that. But in the value sphere, we do that and living with a value-based mindset. We change that programming and we strive to create value in our quest for legacy. We stand for what producing value means to a man, and we walk confidently in our identified purpose. And we focus on that walk that helps us define who we are and what our legacy will be. It's not something that you can fake. It's not something that you can mimic. It's only something that you make from the residue of your own grit, resiliency, and determination. It's your value sphere mindset. It's worth saying at this point that the value sphere is something different than the conversation about high value men that was championed by the late Kevin Samuels. Rest in peace. That conversation was for a specific purpose, and this conversation is for another one. With the value sphere, and I know this is a new term, but let's rock with it, we developed a container for value-based thinking. And we use that container to hold the principles of the value paradigm that drives our behavior. Let's think of it like this. Let's say we started on a scavenger hunt from the moment we were born. The first 14 or so years were like preparation for the hunt. We get our elementary education in those years. And for those of us who are lucky, we got a healthy dose of self-awareness, self-esteem, and self-identity. Identity, esteem, and awareness. For many people, we will have to go out into the world to fortify our identity, esteem, and awareness. We had to scavenge for them. Let me say that the best example that I've seen of rehabilitating people to collectively recover their identity, esteem, and awareness from what I've seen in the world, and to do it productively and not destructively, is with the Nation of Islam. No matter what you think about them, they have done that rehabilitation extremely well. They carry the trophy for that achievement, I would say. But back to value-based mindset. These three elements of identity, esteem, and awareness line up like dominoes and must be secured before a man can identify with any certainty this fourth element, his purpose, which is needed also on this scavenger hunt. There are many people who are lost on a non-ending cycle of trying to find these four elements and who will have a hard time gravitating toward this value sphere mindset. It might be someone listening to me speak now, so to you I say, take a step toward building your value-based mindset. Every man has seeds of it stored up in his being. Just crack a seed and let it start to grow. So yes, I'm aware that this message is for those men who have been able to go through the growing pains and find their meaning and purpose in life. But for those still on the journey, let this message inspire you as a kind of North Star to help guide you in that process.
I like that TRU-Man
First
podcast.
Step is the most important step. And the 50th step is a positive thing as well. Listen, if you think about it, any notable person who has passed away is known because of their value. A value that was a result of their work, not the things they owned or the trophies they got, only the value they created. Think about the Martin Luther King Jr. Center for Nonviolent Social Change in Atlanta, Georgia, that houses MLK's value and his work. Think about Kobe Bryant, his value and work. We remember Kobe mainly for his work ethic and the impact he had on his team, on the court and in the locker room, and the impact he had on his family, and how he represented his brand with dignity. How about Nelson Mandela and his legacy of suffering for the whole liberation of South Africa? He went to Davos at one time. Which one of us has done that? And what did he say? He said, what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived, it is what difference we have made to the lives of others that determine the significance of the life we lead. What about John Lewis? Are there any resistance fighters left in Congress? Or Chadwick Boseman and the legacy he left using the depth of his character and person in his theatrical work? All of their value and all of their work in politics, in media, in government, in struggle, in sacrifice, and in building value is what we know about them today. And they are all gone. There is very little reflection on the life of a man who created no value at all and did little work. But these men, we hold them up. Why? Because they are notable? Yes, but also because they created value through their work while they were alive. While we are alive, we have the chance to work and build value, however big or small. But create value, we must. When we walk, live, work, and play with a value mindset, we get different and more fulfilling outcomes as a result in life. Men, make no mistakes, our legacy is our work and in the value we create from that work. Although our legacy is in our work, our heritage is in our children, maybe. And even then, if those are our children, the only thing we can control is the work we put into creating value. Don't get me wrong, our children are important and can carry on our legacy, but the work in developing value is the actual legacy. Oftentimes, as men, we don't have proximity and influence to our children to fashion and mold them in the way that we want to keep our legacy going. We will not be remembered by them for what we purchased or consumed, not for what restaurants we went to, not the trips we took, not the cars we drove. We will be remembered by our children for the value we created. Value is the only real measure that survives a man once he ceases living. And we can create that today and more of it. This video is for the real throne chasers who won't stop until they value maximize all the way to the top. Family, hold on for a second. Let me talk to all the vultures out there who have a hard time making original content. Nigga, you love my style. Brace yourself for the main event. I'm taking out cases on all you niggas, okay? And invoking intellectual property protections, all right? Make your own content. You gotta ask to use unique content from this channel. Okay. Also, listen, I'm not trying to separate us into some better than the next man bucket because we all have a measure of value. This discussion is to heighten or increase our awareness in the realm of the value sphere and to help us tell the difference between being value producing and consumption minded. We are all self-inclined at baseline, but this discussion is an effort to move us all along in the positive direction of building value. So, as you see, producing value and sustaining legacy supersede all things. And nothing else fulfills a man more than finding and working on his fully felt, thoughtfully developed value. Now that we laid out that basis, there can be no misunderstanding of what we have been talking about here in the value sphere. I told y'all this is going to be a hike, but we are rounding the bend on the last lap for this segment. As a matter of fact, the last 10 videos on this channel were really ramp-ups to this video on the value sphere, and not by accident. There are about 5 videos to come as offshoots of this value sphere conversation. So, we are going to let this meat pause, season, and marinate. Let me talk a little bit more about the value sphere before we leave. The value sphere touches on everything in a man's life. His work, his economy, his health, his fitness, his relationships, his value, and his legacy. It is where men come to draw knowledge that helps us in our quest to fulfill that specific purpose made only for us. The value sphere holds a way for us to understand and make the most sense of the world around us in a way that helps us to capitalize on our efforts. We need a rededication to the honor of men who decide and dedicate their lives to producing value and leaving a true and enduring legacy. Listen to this poem. I wrote it. I titled it Light and Legacy. Value-producing men are men of passion. We are men who desire to lead. We are men whose work will speak for us and will speak so without greed. We are men who have found our purpose in life, and we often strive to be the man who steps up when the light unveils the pride of his legacy. Original content, my poem. As men, we have the capacity to have a unique window into the world. And when we reach out for understanding, when we really reach out for it, that understanding comes from a very insightful place. Listen, we are all capable of this insight. Some have to work more than others to tap into it, but when we do, it leads us to our own legacy. You know, value is a funny thing. It moves like a wave of the sea and ebbs and flows like crashing waves on the beach. However, the difference between our human value as men and rolling sea waves is that we hold the levers that swing our value up or down. We have power over it. It's largely in our hands. The amazing thing is that we have the power to decide what actually becomes our value in this world and what we leave as our legacy. This is true in theory and reality. Vision and action help swing the pendulum of a man's value. Remember AAA? Applied vision, activation, and active action. The height of our value today is only as high as we determined it would be in days past. It can be no higher. It, however, can be lower, sometimes by factors that are beyond our control, but it cannot be any higher. Listen, we all take chances. This podcast is a chance. But building value is not a matter of chance. Building value is a matter of personal investment. And watching this podcast is your personal investment in building your own value, just as creating this podcast is my personal investment as well. Chance does sometimes translate into fortune, and anyone can have fortune, but not anyone can invest and create value. Creating value takes a man who has awareness and is willing to use his vision and action to produce something unique to his talents. Value and fortune are not absolutely connected and are not automatically joined. It would be a mistake to automatically equate fortune with value. The two can coexist and often do, but they are not definitely connected. Surely, money has economic value. We know that. You know, assets have market value. We know that. But a man has what we call intrinsic personal value. It stays with him and fuels his self-esteem. We are all born with a baseline of human value, but to grow our intrinsic personal value as a man is a conscious thing. We have to decide to do that on our own and our own will, to have increasing personal value, to be able to contribute value to the world around us, to be able to build value in ourselves and to be valuable to others. That, my friends, is a deliberate and intentional thing. In the value sphere, we look to be that, just that, deliberate and intentional, to have intended outcomes and be proactive where we envision and create based upon our own revealed purpose. The people and the team that forms around us as we take on more of the attributes of a value producer are the promoters we will need to champion the value that we create, both while we are here and when we are gone. Nipsey Hussle said something interesting. He said he doesn't listen to artists who are not value producers. Isn't that interesting? Check out this short.
But then again, I don't listen to people that I can't learn from. So I don't listen to interviews of artists that don't have no value in what they say. I don't listen to music from people that I can't get no game from.
I think he was definitely a value producing personality. My opinion. Growing value or building it, however you want to state it, requires something from us that can only be pulled out from inside ourselves. It comes from the personal state of a man's self-awareness coupled with his efforts. That's why our creative expressions are so moving and fulfilling. When we are able to be unrestricted in our creativity with purpose, that is a very fulfilling thing. When we produce value that comes from something we create, we are giving to the world something that moves the banner of human progress forward, however small or however large that may be. We are nearly finished with this segment and intro into the Valuesphere. If we are going to be totally honest, for those of us who have economic hardships, personal hardships, mental hardships, and who may be currently experiencing life in that dog-eat-dog world of might makes right, it may be difficult for you to connect with this message at the moment. I know it can be hard to look at another man's progress when we are not on our own square. But for anybody who finds this message difficult, I invite you to shift your mindset and focus in like a laser on your own value, because you do have value and big value. Your conditions will change in an order of time as you apply yourself. As part of the TRU-Man podcast community, I want to hear stories of value-producing men that you have known in your life, and what value they have produced that was a reflection of their life work and purpose. How did they fill the mold? And of the value pathway you yourself are taking, and the value that you are creating, so that we can encourage and inspire each other toward our legacy. Okay, our discussion on the Valuesphere will pick up with the next segment in this series, and in one of those two segments, we will be discussing building value and relationships. You don't want to miss that stream, so you are invited to check back with us soon. This has been Ray Black, your life coach of encouragement with TRU-Man Podcast, where we reflect on the work and the worth of a man, and we focus on gold paradigms and diamond principles. Family, let's go.